Hey, welcome to On Your Lane. This is the best place for ambitious people who are taking charge of their lives, making that income, making that impact, and living fulfilling lives. And today we're going to talk about how habits are holding you hostage. Yes, hostage situation out here. Why do I say this? Because really, most of us have amazing dreams, amazing goals, but crappy work ethic on the ground, crappy habits. And sometimes habits can be embedded into our personality, and we think, well, this is how I am. When in actual sense, they're totally separate from the personality. Only that most habits get really, really deep and get entangled in you and your personality. Most habits are learned and therefore they can be unlearned. And that's what we're going to talk about today. My personal experience with habits has been that they have drawn me to a place I didn't want to go. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur from the time I was young. I always knew I wanted to employ lots of people in my big organization. That's what I had as a dream. But I didn't know what that looked like. And so when I started growing and becoming, I became a person who embodied everything contrary to the dream that I had. Because if you're a person who wants to build this big organization, there'll be some demands on you, your time. There'll be demands on the disciplines, how you relate to people, all these things that are required, not required because you'll be employed, but just the demands that come with you building something big will demand certain habits on you. And I became this person who was just contrary to that, contrary to it. I couldn't just be disciplined about anything. I couldn't really be organized. I hated systems around anything, and I wanted to build something that was a huge system. So it was contradictory. And when I stopped and thought about it on my own at that point in my life where I was like, you know what, at this point I felt like I would be successful in a different way. And I stopped and thought, I am not that. What is happening? And when I started asking those questions, what is happening? My habits were at the top of the culprits. My habits, which I celebrated, were really stealing from me. They were taking away from my potential. They were taking away from my potential. They were taking away from my dreams and my goals. And that had me stopping and thinking, what should I do about it? And I hope you're also stopping and thinking, do I have any habits right now that I need to revisit? Are there some things I need to change? Because what is happening the way it is not working. And we have a tendency as people to stick to things even when they don't work. You know, there are some organizations you go there and say, why do you do these things this way? They say, this is how it's always been done. And you're like, but it's not working. You can actually do it this way. They're like, well, we don't want to mess with that. Just leave it the way it is. And so we endure a lot of mess, endure a lot of pain unnecessarily because we want to keep things the way they are. We miss out on a lot of rewards and benefits because we want to keep things the way they are. Something with us as individuals, there are things that we need to change because they're not going to help us move forward. They're not helping our relationships. They're not helping our journey to success. They're not helping our faith. They're not helping our mental health. They're not helping anything. But we're like, this is how I am. And therefore, we don't even ask for help. We don't even read anything that can help us understand what is going on in our head so that maybe we can free ourselves. And therefore, we find ourselves in the hostage situation. You can see your dreams, you can have your goals, you can see them, you can envision them, but you are not moving because you're in prison by your own habits. I know you want to be successful. I know you want great relationships. I know you want to leave a great legacy and live an amazing life, because why else are you here, right? So therefore, let's talk about how we can change our habits and make sure that we get out of this hostage situation. Number one is you must review your current habits. Just write them down. When I started my own transformation journey, I got this workbook from this guy before 5 a.m. And this guy, check him out on Instagram. He is amazing. In his workbook, he said, review your habits. And for me, I was like, oh, this is boring. Why should I review my habits? But when I started reviewing my habits, and that means just writing down how you spend your day as you spend it. So waking up time, what are you doing after you wake up? Just take a record of it. It might not be perfect, but it'll give you an indication of how your habits are. And looking at that, I was like, this person is not going anywhere. Because you can see a person's habits and say, this person, if they do this every day, they're not going anywhere. And that's what I saw in my habit list. I was like, this person is not going anywhere. They're not doing anything towards their goals, to build an empire. They're not doing anything to cultivate their relationships or their character. They are just going with the flow. They're not going anywhere. And so reviewing your habits will give you insights so that you can really be honest and true to yourself and say, am I really serious about the things that I want to achieve? Am I really serious about what I want to be like at 50, at 60, at 90? Am I really serious about it? So you must review your habits. My friend and I sat at lunch the other day and we were talking about what we wanted to look like at 50, not just looks, but look like our lives, our relationships. And she put up a great point. She said that because I want to look like she had a whole example of who she wanted to look like. She said she wanted to look like Michelle Obama. She thought Michelle Obama looked amazing at 50. So she was like, physically, I want to be as fit and strong, as good looking as Michelle Obama at 50. So I was like, girl, in our 30s right now, you don't work out, you don't eat right. How is that body going to show up at 50? And we were laughing about it and then just trying to hold each other accountable to it and say, okay, she's going to start working out, she's going to start eating better. But what I wanted to say is that the habits you have right now, they have already mapped out what you're going to be doing in 50 years, in 70 years, or whatever. They are already taking you to a destination. And usually for most people, that destination is not what we want. And therefore, that's why we must review these habits and redirect them. If you want to look a certain way, then you're going to start eating right now. If you're going to have these certain habits, like you're going to be a reader, you're going to be a writer, you're going to be a person who travels, there's some changes that need to happen in your life right now. If you're going to be a person who's responsible with money, you're going to build something, there's some money habits that you have to start embedding right now. Okay, so your habits have to be reviewed. And when you see that review, you have to honestly embrace it and be committed to changing it. Number 2 is you have to identify your triggers. Every habit comes with triggers. This was interesting to me when I was reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. Check it out as well. And please tell James Clear that I keep mentioning him here. He needs to sponsor something, maybe free books or something. But I was reading Atomic Habits and it mentions triggers to the habit, right? So every habit has a trigger. After I read that, it made me so aware. There's some shops I get in and I've conditioned myself like, okay, when I go into this bakery, what happens is I go get a donut. Like all the time. So whether I want that donut or not, I find myself, I'm like, how did I get the donut? I don't know about you, maybe you're not like that, but there's another situation like driving. I know when I'm driving, I'm going to work or I'm going to my son's school. I know the path there. You see? So I know how I get there. Sometimes I'm not going there, but I find myself going there because habit. Okay? So you have to find triggers. What triggers that reaction? So for me, it was entering that shop. Just entering that shop would trigger donut. Just getting in the car and going past a certain traffic circle would trigger you going to pick up your son. So those are things that you would change then. So if you're going somewhere else, you say, I'll avoid the traffic circle. It doesn't mean you're avoiding it forever. It's just you reconditioning yourself and being aware of how your mind works. So you would say, okay, I will no longer go to buy bread in that shop. I'll go buy bread in a different shop and I will not get that donut. Or sometimes you can say, okay, when I enter in, no donut. So you are reconditioning yourself because you're identifying triggers. Most of us are able to notice the habit after it has passed. So the habit is already taking place. You have already done what you should have done. You've already eaten that donut and you're like, there's a trigger there. So that doesn't help. So you have to sit down and then identify those triggers. For other people, it's sitting on the couch. When you sit on the couch, you take popcorn and you browse every day. Every day, that's what you do. Sit on the couch, popcorn, start browsing. Sit on the couch, popcorn, browsing. You need to break something there. So you can sit on the couch and then take your phone away. You're breaking a habit. Your body will be like, take the phone. You'll be like, no, we're just sitting here eating popcorn, no phone. Or we're just sitting here, no phone, no popcorn. We're just going to watch something. So you're identifying triggers and playing around with them to break that cycle that is not helpful to you. Now, something interesting that happens, which is the third point here, is that you don't just identify those triggers and identify those habits and just leave that space empty. Like I'm saying, you were sitting on the couch, eating popcorn and being on the phone. If you're just going to be there and just sit, that is an empty space now. It's not going to work. So you have to replace those old habits with new ones. So let's say sit on the couch, take popcorn, read a book. Sit on the couch, read a book, no popcorn. Sit on the couch, drink water, read a book. You see, you're replacing that habit. So you see what works for you and you realize what I want to do is to read after work, not eat popcorn and watch TV or browse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit on the couch and I'm not going to take that phone. I'm going to take a bottle of water instead of a popcorn. I'm going to read. Yeah, you understand it? So you're replacing habits. You don't want to just leave that habit empty. There was this young rabbi who gave an amazing example, which I love. He said that when a person is possessed by demons and they're cast out of that person, they'll go away into the desert and look for a place to go. But when they don't find a place, they'll come back. And when they find that place empty, they'll come again and invite even more of their kind. And they'll now really be like into that person. You get it? So don't leave empty spaces. You say, okay, I used to do this. Now, what do you do in that place? Because if you leave an empty space, you're inviting that old habit to come back. And because habits are deep-rooted, they get really familiar. And you find yourself mindlessly drifting back to the old habits if you don't replace them with new ones. So identify these old habits and then see which new habits you want to place them with. And they have to be really similar. So chilling on the couch, reading a book is really similar with chilling on the couch, browsing. It's all chilling on the couch, right? Don't want to say chilling on the couch, browsing, replaced with chilling on the couch, running. No, chill, run. You see, it will be hard for you to adjust that. So replace old habits with new habits as much as you can, as similar as you can, so that you're still doing what you wanted to do, but this time the trigger has changed. So the trigger is sitting down instead of eating or browsing. Now you're sitting down and you're reading. Replace old with the new, and the trigger will now become the trigger for the new. Another thing you can do to make sure that you're sticking to new habits and you are reforming your habits is to just make the bad habits harder to do. Okay, so if your habit is eating cake after work and you eat maybe 3 cupcakes and whatnot, what is making that habit easy to do is having cupcakes in the house, right? So if you take cupcakes out of the house and never buy them and keep them in the house, then that habits become harder. Because now if you want cupcakes, you need to get out of the house and go get them from a shop. So when you make bad habits harder, you make it easier for you to reinforce the new habits. Okay, so the opposite is also true. Make good habits easier. You might say, I want to read a book, but you leave your books in a suitcase up in your room. That is making that good habit harder to reinforce. So where do you hang out? On the couch. Okay, keep your books close by. So when you sit, you can see them and easily grab them. So make the bad habits harder to reinforce and make the good habits easier to reinforce. I hope that was helpful for you. But please remember the power of habits. Don't let them hold you hostage. Don't let your own habits really stop you from achieving the big things that you want to achieve. Another tip that I'll leave you with is that make sure you understand what is feeding that habit. Go to the source and starve that habit, because whatever you feed grows. And if you find that the old habit is coming back strong, then you might have to check, what are you feeding it? You can feed it knowledge, you can feed it experiences, you can feed it with your company or friends, what they do. You can feed it by hanging out with specific people in specific places. Those things will feed your habits. You might say, I want to stop drinking, but you're hanging out in drinking places. You're feeding that habit. It will keep getting stronger and stronger. So you have to starve the things you don't want to grow in your life, and then you have to feed the new things in your life. And knowledge, experience, and friendships, all these things are great for feeding the right habits and starving the wrong ones. I hope this was really helpful for you, and I hope you apply any of these. Let me know in the comments which one was a helpful tip for you and which one you run with and which one you've had experience with. If you're really serious about finding success and developing new habits, I want you to check out the Zone of Success, a simple exercise that I created for you. It's free. You can find it in the description box. Check it out. 3 questions, impactful. They'll help you, direct you on the path of success. Therefore, you can have a good reason why you want to reform your habits. And if you want to get deep and develop yourself and learn your purpose and walk boldly through life, you can work with me one-on-one in the Circle of Greatness, and check it out as well in the description. If you have any questions, comments, please get in touch. My name is Mavis Tanjizo Ganjata, all over social media. I love to connect. And new videos on Tuesdays and podcasts on Thursdays. So stick around and let's grow together. I'll see you next week. Bye.